Good morning. It's July 3rd, and this is your daily brief in science. Here's everything you need to know. Kyoto University is moving toward formal certification as Japan's next university for international research excellence, a status that would open access to a major funding program. Education authorities plan to certify the institution by the end of the summer, unlocking a portion of the 10 trillion yen fund designed to bolster top-tier research institutions. The move positions Kyoto University to model rapid growth and aim for global leadership as a premier research university, according to Education Minister Yohei Matsumoto. Initial annual support is planned at about 20 billion yen, contingent on submission and approval of an improvement plan that accompanies the designation. The first-year package is set at roughly 20 billion yen, tied to an approved plan and its milestones. After designation, the ministry will review progress periodically to adjust grants or continued support as needed, with ongoing monitoring shaping future grant decisions. Kyoto University's plan had been refined and met certification criteria, with implementation timing fixed as of last December. A core reform involves shifting from insular professor-led seminars to a department-based structure to nurture younger researchers' independence. The plan calls for abolishing small laboratory groups led by individual professors and reorganizing into about 20 department units by field to boost collaboration and competitiveness. By moving to a department-based organization, the university aims to strengthen research independence and cross-field collaboration, aligning with the goals of the designation. The designation could be formalized by the end of summer, enabling up to 25 years of support with annual subsidies around 20 billion yen for fiscal 2026. A small constellation is changing how we watch the Earth. CyGNSS, a NASA mission launched in 2016 by the University of Michigan, used GNSS-R to detect GPS signals reflected off the Earth, initially to improve hurricane forecasting, but proving valuable for land applications like soil moisture, drought, floods, wildfires, and locust forecasting. The 8-satellite network samples the same ground point about every 7 hours, enabling imaging of storm eyes for a larger portion of a storm's lifetime than previous systems. After a pivot from an initial ocean focus to land and flood and wildfire applications, the project embraced a cheaper, distributed constellation model that overcomes coverage limits of a single satellite sensor. FireSat and related GNSS-R efforts aim to predict wildfire risk and spread, with FireSat recognized as Time's Best Inventions of 2025 and ongoing CALFIRE collaborations for fire behavior forecasting. Future enhancements include receivers that detect more GPS reflections per second and potential data routing through Starlink to speed real-time data delivery, expanding practical use. Key figures such as Chris Ruff and Aaron Ridley helped steer GNSS-R from oceans to land, while Clara Chu leads GNSS-R data at Muon Space. CyGNSS-R data improved NOAA hurricane forecasts and spurred private-public collaborations, with NOAA licensing IP to Muon Space for commercial use and attracting international interest. Notable outcomes include better forecasts of storm intensity, track, size, and precipitation, plus practical fire size and risk predictions that aid firefighting planning. The concept has evolved to support broader disaster management, drone-based sensing, and faster data delivery, signaling ongoing growth of GNSS-R technology. The constellation demonstrated that cheap, small satellites can provide high temporal data by receiving reflected GPS signals from multiple directions, enabling near-daily coverage of the tropical storm belt. A growing ecosystem of GNSS-R systems now includes 10 similar deployments by governments and companies, with FireSat as a notable example expanding drought, wildfire, flood, and locust monitoring. A new study led by a renowned cancer researcher reveals a mechanism by which a subset of lung cancers drives cachexia by signaling the brain through lung sensory nerves, effectively hijacking the nervous system. The mechanism centers on the lipid molecule prostaglandin E2, or PGE2, with tumors producing elevated levels that enable tumor-to-brain communication and trigger cachexia. In mouse models, silencing lung sensory nerves or blocking PGE2 production, whether genetically or with NSAIDs like aspirin or ibuprofen, prevents cachexia. The science paper, published July 2, 2026, reports a large multi-institution collaboration including New York University, Harvard, Rutgers, Princeton, and Cold Spring Harbor, with funding from NIH, the American Cancer Society, Pfizer, and others. The publication highlights broad collaboration across major universities and multiple funding organizations supporting the breakthrough. Cachexia affects about half of cancer patients worldwide and is linked to high mortality. Previous models lacked physiologic relevance until this study. Researchers built physiologically relevant mouse models with tumors in appropriate locations and sizes to study cachexia and tumor nervous system interactions more accurately, enabling clearer observation of tumor communication with the nervous system. The findings point to peripheral nervous system involvement in cancer cachexia as a novel and potentially translatable target, suggesting therapies that could improve cancer care and patients' quality of life. Translational opportunities include targeting nervous system pathways, or PGE2 signaling, with possible repurposing of existing drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen, and consideration of dietary patterns. Senior author notes that tumors may hijack local lung sensory neurons to influence behavior and symptoms, pointing toward new cancer care strategies. Diet appears to modulate this tumor-brain communication. High-fat, high-calorie diets worsened cachexia, while reducing omega-6 fatty acids and boosting omega-3s lowered PGE2 production and tumor signaling, offering a potential dietary intervention. A new study using wearable data suggests breaking up long periods of sitting with light activity can lower cancer mortality, with about a 12% drop when replacing an hour of sedentary time and roughly a 22% reduction when 5 minutes per day are swapped for vigorous exercise. The researchers looked at a United Kingdom biobank cohort of 91,292 participants and published their findings in PLOS Medicine under the title Accelerometry, measured prolonged and interrupted sedentary behavior and cancer incidence and mortality. They urge moving beyond one-size-fits-all guidelines toward personalized strategies to interrupt sitting and call for clinical trials to refine recommendations. The study is observational and notes correlations rather than causation, acknowledging potential selection bias since United Kingdom Biobank volunteers may not perfectly mirror the general population. Independent experts not involved in the study caution that more research is needed to establish causality and understand underlying mechanisms. The team relied on wearable device data to identify patterns of sitting and movement, which reveal associations but cannot prove that movement causes lower cancer risk. Limitations include health volunteer bias and the lack of data on the context of sitting, such as work versus leisure, which constrains causal inferences and generalizability. Author discussions emphasize that health effects may depend on how sitting is broken up, not just total sitting time, and propose that introducing light movement could be a practical approach. NHS guidance already supports daily physical activity, encourages reducing sitting time, and recommends breaking up long periods of inactivity with various forms of exercise. A global hunt through decades shows how a hospital superbug rose to prominence. Researchers combined genome data from 226 historical samples dating from the 1970s to the early 2000s with more than 1,000 recent genomes spanning 6 continents to map the evolution and spread of Acinetobacter baumannii and its antimicrobial resistance genes. This multinational effort linked past and present to build a comprehensive evolutionary tree and identify how resistance traits moved across borders. 2 major genetic elements, including the OXA23 resistance gene, emerged as turning points that dramatically boosted the bacterium's survival against antibiotics. The findings emphasize that antibiotic resistance accumulates over time and that historical context and international collaboration are essential for informing antimicrobial policies and stewardship. By around 2005, international clone 2 became the dominant drug-resistant form worldwide, reflecting waves of resistance that unfolded over decades. The analysis identifies at least 4 distinct lineages within international clone 2, with a 4th group diverging independently and appearing more often in recent samples, suggesting a potentially more fit variant. The study, published in Microbial Genomics, involved institutions such as the University of East Anglia, the Quadram Institute, Université de Sherbrooke, and Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, among others, illustrating broad cooperation in tracking hospital-associated resistance. This has been your Daily Brief in Science. To read more about these stories, follow the links in the episode bio. You can also subscribe to these updates via email at www.brief.news. For more daily podcasts about the topics you love, visit brief.news/podcasts. We'll be back Monday with everything you need to know.